Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Lisa Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Florida, and today I've got a special guest, Miss Cayla Johnson Esteban. She's a holistic health practitioner who specializes in nutrition, herbs, and emotional clearing. Her passion is to help others find the peace and healing that she's found through the health practices that she uses. And on top of that, just to let you guys know, audience, Cayla is a new family member of mine because she has actually married my cousin last September. So welcome, Cayla Johnson Esteban to the 8 Billion Podcast. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much, Ate Lisa.
No, I mean, it's crazy. You are actually one of my, you are actually first family member on my podcast.
Well, so thank you.
You were the first family member on my podcast. For me, I'm looking forward to actually having a lot of my family on here. It's just going in such a great direction. And I'm just so, it's an honor to actually have you on here.
Thank you. I mean, I thank you so much for having me. And you do have a really great family. So you've got a lot of great stories to tell there.
I hope so. We've kept Cayla entertained for many years, most especially her husband, who is very close to me. So this is an absolute joy to actually have this on now podcast, of course. And then of course, this will go up on YouTube, but, one of the things, I've had Cayla on as a guest before, but on my live streaming channel. And, I invited her back onto the 8 Billion Podcast because she is a holistic health practitioner. And in the more recent times, I completed sessions called emotional clearing. And so I found it so helpful in every aspect of my life that I wanted to make sure that I shared this with my audience, family, and friends, because it was such a huge part of my journey, especially in the more recent times. So, I just want to say thank you, Cayla, actually, for reaching out to me and then letting me know that these sessions were available, and we did try it out. But it was so divine too when you actually reached out to me, and it was kind of something that I knew was right below the surface that needed to peak, so then I could go on to do some amazing things, especially for this podcast and in my career, and most especially my personal life. So,
well, thank you, because it was a new experience. Is so interesting. I feel like every different person that I've worked on has their own unique situation or unique something. So you were something that was very specific to you. So it was every different person gives me a new practice. So thank you.
No, absolutely. Would you like to describe what the emotional clearing is? Or how the sessions work?
Yeah. Hopefully I explain it well enough. Because I feel like every time I tell somebody, I'm like, are they going to look at me like I have 3 heads or something? Because it's not really something that you normally talk about. And I'm like, it's science, I promise. But it does sound very ethereal or spiritual. And it is also. So essentially, our bodies have, our bodies react to emotions. Like when you're nervous, your heart starts beating faster. When you're embarrassed, your face gets flushed. And certain things like having chronic emotions can cause can contribute to health issues. Like if you're really anxious and your stomach gets bubbly, then you can have stomach ulcers, or people with chronic anger issues might have a heart condition, right? So emotions really have a really big impact on our bodies. And sometimes if we either don't really express our emotions well, or we're not really connected to our emotions well, or especially I think as children, we don't really have that maturity to fully process our emotions. And so the emotions can kind of get trapped inside our body. And it can be anywhere really in your body. And so what I do, I use a practice called Applied Kinesiology or muscle testing. Some people are more familiar with that term, but I kind of tap into what your body's saying, and I figure out what the emotion is, maybe where it came from at the time, maybe where it is in your body, and then using magnets and kind of an intention, or I like to think of it kind of like a prayer too. It kind of like flushes that emotion out of your body. So I don't know if that.
No, that was an amazing way to actually explain it. So I just want to let the audience know, Cayla does not have 3 heads. And just for a little bit of comfort, Cayla, to be honest with you, I believe that more and more of the audience, or at least people that I come across, is very in tune now, knowing that there's a lot of stuck emotions in the body. And for me, I came into certain practices. I mean, my first energy clearing was with my healer. And at first I reached out to her for Reiki, but she has such a unique type of way of doing these energy sessions that it's not necessarily like falls within the Reiki category. But she helped me understand so much about how these trapped emotions around your body. And let's just take like even something very simple. So I'm talking to the audience. You could probably have had, like maybe a back pain for many years. Yeah. And they really truly are connected to emotions. And it could have been maybe a trauma from when you were younger, but you're just thinking, oh, I have back pains. Mm-hmm. So what this session would essentially do is identify really maybe where that emotion came from. And I'm going to share my journey just because it just made such a huge difference. And so there was so many, I mean, I think we did like 4 sessions, right, Cayla?
Something like 3 or 4, I don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So one was the heart wall, right? And so I guess we'll delve into that next. But the first session that I did was very specific. So for myself, I wanted to work on relationships, right? And there were, and like Cayla was saying, it is very spiritual. Like she does the prayer. She taps into it. And then interestingly enough, are you okay, Cayla, with me going into detail a little bit about the session?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's your session, so whatever you feel comfortable sharing, I mean.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to go into great detail like what they were, but she identified a certain amount of emotions, and she was able to, let's just say there were 17. I think there were 17 in mine, right?
Something like, yeah.
Yeah. So 17, I'm all like, oh my gosh, how long is it going to take to clear this? Right. Because it was just like, are we going to go through 17 like different incidences in my life? But what was really cool is that she could cluster or batch some of those emotions into one. And then from there, she was able to identify a time frame in my life that something had happened based upon that emotion that she used. So interestingly enough, even if there were some things from so long ago, it was only a matter of minutes that I would identify it. And then Cayla was like, yeah, that's it. But she didn't say yes all the time. There were certain things that I thought that were attached to maybe different stories in my life. And she was like, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what is it? So then I keep thinking and thinking. And then when I identified it, she's like, yeah, it's that. And so it took us, in the relationship portion, it took us 2 sessions, but it was amazing to kind of go through it. There's no pain. In fact, we did it through the Zoom conference. We did it through Zoom. And interestingly enough, like she used magnets, and she was the one, and Cayla was the one that used it on herself. So it works, you guys. I'm just telling you, even from remotely. But it was interesting first, right, to kind of actually see the session done. But it was so like liberating for me. And you know what I mean? And it was very deeply emotional. So like, I wanted to say that like and sometimes even it's not even in the session that, she's clearing or doing the emotional clearing during the session, but it was really the work that needed to be done even 24, 48 hours preceding that. Because what it's going to do is even like pull out the emotion from you. And so in some cases, it could be something as light as like, I don't feel anything, to like, sometimes you're going to process it and you just want to cry. But I was just aware that it was leaving my body. So that's why I wasn't so worried about it. I was like, yeah, I'll leave my body. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to, I thought it was such an amazing type of practice that I absolutely felt like it was definitely something to share with my family, friends, and the audience members. So if you ever get a chance or you're really interested in this, like Cayla can, I'll have her contact information at the end. But, and then we ended up doing a heart wall session. But Cayla, could you give me like certain examples of how people have used it? So I used it personally, like in relationships. And of course, we did the heart wall because I really wanted to work on that specifically for this, the 8 billion project, Mm-hmm. But could you give examples of what other people have used it for? Because I mean, apparently you could use it through a wide variety of different areas in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like, I haven't really found a lot of things that it doesn't really work with, which sounds really vague, but like I've seen it work with physical things, like especially pain is a good one to start with, because that's so like identifiable. Like if your shoulder hurts and then it stops hurting, you're like, oh yeah, with something like your heart or your emotions, it's like, okay, I kind of have to think about it and give it a few days. But if the pain just like goes away, then you're like, oh my goodness, it's noticeable. And it could be other physical things like certain chronic illnesses, certain things like, physically, I've been doing a lot of like pregnancy stuff.
That's so cool.
I've worked on like with my morning sickness or around ligament pain or like just about anything else that has come up for me, I've been able to work with. So I've been blessed with a really easy pregnancy so far. Sorry, your listeners don't know.
Just in case, audience, Cayla is actually due in about 2 weeks, so we're going to be welcoming a new. Can I reveal the gender, or maybe we'll be welcoming a new baby into our family? So we're super excited. But probably by the time this podcast is released, the baby will be born.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because season 3 will not launch until June 16th for me, and I think we're probably June 4th or 5th right now recording this.
Yeah. I mean, our due date's June 19th, so
yeah. So once I release this, guys, don't forget to congratulate Cayla. And you can partake in her sessions in about 3 months. Well, actually, we might be able to do it sooner, right? If it's Zoom.
I'm hoping I'll be able to start again by August. Nice. But, I'll definitely like take, I don't know, what is it called? Like a pre-registration. No, like what is it going like?
She's like, I'm taking wait list, guys.
Yeah, like a wait list, as soon as I'm ready, I'll start making calls for people. But yeah, sorry, that was a sidetrack.
No, you're fine. This is what happens in podcasting. Just let it ride, girl.
I mean, it works great with pregnancy. Something that was really interesting to me is with pregnancy, just as kind of a side note, a lot of our pregnancy symptoms that we get, like especially morning sickness, tends to be either like a physical or a spiritual and metaphysical disconnect between you and the baby. So there's a way that like magnetically you can like make that connection stronger, and then the symptoms go away. So especially for something like hyperemesis, like really bad morning sickness that people get, it like you can actually really make a big difference with something like that. So that was like a fascinating little bit of trivia for me. But so it works with a lot of physical stuff. It works with emotional things like with PTSD, with phobias, even like not irrational phobias, but like how some people, they just, like, I knew a girl once that she said she was terrified of snakes and she had no idea why. And she she'd never had a bad traumatic experience with snakes. She just, like, as soon as she saw a snake, she just reacted. So there's like certain things like that, anything like relationships, like social anxiety, or like romantic relationships anyway, like connecting with other people. I even worked with it in myself. I had like an interesting experience over like the past few years where I've been noticing that, like, when I talk, it's something I'll like, it makes sense to me, and I'll think that I'm saying a certain thing, and then what other people hear for some reason just like gets twisted around, and like it's not what I intend to say. And then they'll say, "Oh, you should have said this," and I'm like, "That's exactly what I said," So it was like a weird kind of like, I don't understand, like, emotionally, cognitively, how I'm intending to say something, and somewhere between like here and there, it just gets
totally
twisted
taken
around.
completely different.
Yeah, and it was a weird like phenomenon that I couldn't understand, and I thought, let me like try to work on this, and it actually like has gotten significantly better since then, just in my own like relationships and in my life. So it's kind of a weird, I don't know how to explain it, but so it can work with like physical, emotional, social, spiritual, like heart connection, even like financial or career based. Like if you have, like some woman came to me and she said like she was having a really hard time making decisions. And she said like, I just get so caught up in the options and I can't decide on things, and it was affecting like her career and her relationships and different things like that. And after I worked with her, she sent me a message. She said that she'd been trying to buy a mattress for like 5 months and she couldn't make a decision. And she said, the next day after you worked with me, I got on the internet and within 10 minutes I had bought a mattress.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
It was so interesting to be able to see that. So it works on a lot of different things.
And even down to very specific, if you wanted to see you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then another interesting thing too, was some of the emotions were even they can be tied to family members and other generations.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's so interesting how like that, like I heard there was like a study that they did on Holocaust survivors and their descendants. And their descendants actually showed signs of like PTSD and depression and trauma and things that like they'd had perfectly normal lives.
Yeah.
They didn't experience any of the trauma that their grandparents or great-grandparents experienced, and yet they had these emotions. And, so it's interesting how our emotions, I don't even know scientifically how it works. It just gets like locked in our DNA somehow and passed on. Yeah.
And for me though, Cayla, like, just to let the audience know, one of the emotions that connected Cayla worked on for me, mine was actually tied to my father and went back 4 generations. Now, is it a series of like what you're saying, just questions that you're asking? Like, it's almost in an odd way, it's like, it almost even is like your connection to spirit, or like it's an intuition or something, right? Because while I'm sitting there in the session and you guys, it's really such a unique experience. Like there's a time when Cayla will pause for a second because she's asking questions, and then she comes back with some information. I'm like, how did you know that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there is some element of like intuition, and that's what I always like pray for at the start of my sessions is like just for discernment and for that, because there's that little like it's really, it seems like an exact science because I'm asking yes or no questions, but it's really there's like an element of subjectivity to it.
Okay,
there's some like rules and stuff.
Okay, really quick then. If you're asking yes or no questions, how did you say, like, okay, because I'll let you guys know, the audience, like Cayla's pretty quiet, but other than that, she'll probably look like she's talking to herself a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so when you're telling me that my dads went back 4 generations, will you couple it? Like you'll say like, is it a generational thing? And then it'll say yes or no. And then you say, is it, and then you'll give them, you'll ask, maybe spirit or whatever, you know what I mean? Source, God. Then you'll ask, do you say 1, 2, 3 years? And then how do you get that specific number?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a combination of even though I'm testing on my own self, like virtually, I'm still connected to you. So it's almost like, in a way, I'm like, if you and I were sitting in the same room, I would probably be testing on your own body. So, but
isn't that so neat? I'm just like so blown away.
It is really interesting. And I do also believe that there is that element of like connection to God that really like helps with finding out those things. But just to kind of like, at least, to give you an example, like with that one. So I go through it pretty quickly now, just because I've had enough time to know which questions to ask. Like occasionally something will come up and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think we had one that came up and I was like, I don't know how to answer this. Maybe you can help me out. But so a lot of times it'll be pretty quick. Like with that situation, there's certain kind of like clues that might give me a hint that it might be something inherited. So then I'll ask, is it inherited? I'll get like a yes answer. And then, was it inherited on your mother's side or your father's side? So it was your father's side. And then how many generations does it go back? Does it go back just 1 generation to your father, to your grandparents, great grandparents? So it went back 4 generations. And then you can ask more questions too. Like,
that's how you came up with it? Because you said father, grandfather, great grandfather, and that's how you figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say, how many generations does it go back? Does it go back 1, 2, 3, 4? And then you can ask more questions too, like, was it a male family member? Was it a female? I feel like at that point, as far as I know, like usually if you know how many generations, like that's all you need to know. Because especially, I mean, if it's one thing, if it's your father or your grandmother or something like that, but if it's like going back 20 generations, like you have no idea who that person is. You don't know anything about their life. So you're not really going to have a lot of information to go off of, but you don't really need any more information after that point, usually.
But I'm trying to think back at the session. It's still tied to something like, because when we identified that certain emotion with my father, and then you said it went four generations back, we still tied it into something that happened to me in my lifetime, right? I'm trying to remember if we did. I think it was.
I honestly don't remember. I mean, I think it was, if I remember, I think it was like that particular emotion had come up like a few different times.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In different ways. So like it came up in that way as inherited, but then it came up also like in
the heart wall
situation. And, so yeah, if I remember right, that's what it was. But
yeah. No, and I mean, that's why it was just so important for me to get Cayla on here with these sessions. And I'm, moving into season 3 and moving forward, I'm just really big about sharing so much with my audience about, with so much happening since the pandemic, many lives have been turned upside down. And I think the way to find peace in a lot of things, even though, let's just say your life is a little bit chaotic right now, or it was, especially in 2020, because there's so many different dynamics. And you think about that, right? Like parents had to keep their kids at home, then they had to work. And so you're all underneath the same room. Energies are swirling everywhere. You're having to think, and lives are turned upside down. And that's just one example of a family dynamic. Now, the reason that I'm pushing so much to get these, different kinds of guests that offer either holistic practices or healing is because I truly believe that everything has to heal from within first, so you can resolve your problems exteriorly. Or if you heal within, in many cases, if not all cases, you won't have all of those problems exteriorly. And so that's why it's so big for me to get guests like Cayla and all the different guests you're going to start seeing in season 3, because they're offering up such great, and even it's not even like even just for their sessions. It's just to bring awareness, that these options are out there for everyone,
Yeah. I mean, it's I wish I could say it was, I don't want it to seem like a crystal ball or like a magic solution, like everything just melts away and you're perfectly fine afterwards, because life is life. And like, I remember you had asked me about the heart wall, like, does it come back afterwards? And like, yeah, unfortunately, like, yeah, sometimes the things do come back, or sometimes even like, let's say you have knee pain and I clear those trapped emotions and the pain is gone. Maybe new trapped emotions will come in and they'll just like settle into that same spot.
Oh, absolutely.
Get knee pain a year later or something, so like I wish it was just like a magic solution.
It's such a great way, guys, or audience, for anyone listening. It's a great way to like either clear emotions. And she's absolutely right, because I was experiencing something last Friday too, when you had messaged me, Cayla. I haven't even shared that with you yet. I will talk about that offline with you. Yeah. But it always comes back. But it's so important to at least at the very least, try like clearing the energy, right? Because that's where a lot of diseases and cancers and, you know what I mean? Is because we're constantly being projected at, or we're experiencing so many emotions. If you're not able to process it properly, it stays in your body. And just because I had these sessions, I was fully aware that like, yeah, it made a lot of sense, because it's not like I was done living.
Yeah.
And so I think it just helps from time to time to just check in with yourself, because you're not going to stop having experiences. It's just being able to now stay as clear as you can and, navigate through that, because the ultimate thing that, is even just promoting this. So then, it takes away from people having to go through like cancers and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. I mean, one thing that I've really appreciated that other people have shared with me when I work with them is like a lot of people will describe something similar. They'll say like, oh, I feel lighter, or I feel like a weight is lifted off me or something. And I feel like clearing those emotions it's not that it necessarily like heals you, but it just kind of like all of our bodies are designed to heal themselves, Yeah. And so when we have these emotions that are creating this block, like, emotions, they lower our like our vibrational frequency, and they lower our immune system, and they lower our abilities, like our body's natural ability to take care of itself.
Absolutely.
So that weight out and you just take that emotion out. It's just kind of like getting it out of your body's way to be able to heal itself, and that's something that I really appreciated about it. There's this woman named Caroline Myss, and she writes books and she does a lot of speaking things. If you ever want to look her up, but she said something once where she was talking about like how emotions affect our bodies, and she said if you are very emotionally like congested, for lack of a better word, and you're weighed down by all these emotions, you could be eating like organic everything, non-GMO everything, like breathing in purified air, and you could still get cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
Or she said, if you're the most emotionally well-adjusted person and you have peace and you have love and gratitude and calm in your life, you could be eating cat food and you wouldn't get sick. Like, I mean, it's kind of a simplistic way of putting it, but I really appreciated how she just recognized that like emotions play a really big part, and our attitudes in life play a big part, and clearing out those emotions. Sometimes we're not really able to clear them out ourselves, especially like inherited emotions. We have no idea that they're there.
And generational emotions. I might check in with you again, Cayla. Maybe we should do one on live podcast so everyone can see.
Well,
I'm let's not bring that up, Cayla.
I mean, maybe
could you choose a different emotion? Right? Or like, let's not go there. Yeah, be open to doing it. Geez, the sacrifices I make for my audience. And
or we could find a whole nother third party person. If somebody's feeling brave.
If who wants to volunteer for this? Hey, you guys, if you are watching this during the podcast and you're interested in a session, I'd love for you to contact me. And I would love to set something up with Cayla. So we'd be able to kind of do something,
Yeah.
But I mean, Cayla, you've come across even just emotional clearing in the more recent times, right? And you've actually had such a great practice in holistic health. Would you say by far this has been one of the most, either, I wouldn't even say interesting, because it is interesting, but I mean, how much do you love this part of your practice? I mean, it must be such an amazing thing to be able to help people through this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was a total game changer when I first found out about it, because before I was doing, like, I was already a nutritionist and I was an herbalist and stuff like that. And I would work with people, and like, it was such a challenge because it just seemed like so much work. And a lot of people just like, there are some people that are very dedicated and very motivated and willing to put in a lot of the work. But like, the reality is, like, cheeseburgers taste really good and working out isn't always fun and stuff like that. And so like, I would tell people like, oh, you can take this herb, you can do this detox, you can do this. And people, I had somebody that I worked with, and I felt so bad because I would suggest things and it didn't really, I just could feel her getting like frustrated and discouraged in herself. And I was just like, no, like, this is not what I want for you. And so like, one thing that I really appreciate is that like you don't really have to do anything in that moment during the session, like I remember you like relaxed on pillows and almost like fell asleep, because you were just relaxing. And, I'm not telling you to go like run 10 miles or something. So that's what I really appreciate, is like just the grace and the mercy of it. I feel like that.
No, I'm so sorry, Cayla, that I'm laughing, because I just want to let everyone know. I said, Cayla, can I just rest? She's like, yes, go ahead, feel free. Because I was, my personal experiences, I felt like I was so relaxed, or either like I was starting to feel drained. But then I don't know, it's not so much that I fell asleep, but Cayla was like, Lisa, are you there? But it was just relaxed. And imagine, I mean, I just want everyone to know, remember, everyone will deal with emotions in different ways. Some people, it could trigger you even maybe within like the first couple days, or it could feel like nothing. Mm-hmm. So it just all depends. You just got to honor the process.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. It's not that like you don't have to do any work necessarily. Like sometimes there is some kind of like a little soul searching aspect of it too.
Oh yeah.
And even kind of, I think being kind of consciously aware, so those, you don't get more trapped emotions coming right back. But it was just so much easier. And even like the the applied kinesiology or the muscle testing that I would do, like I have applied it to nutrition and to herbs. And like, so if you have, like, I've had people come and say oh, can you tell me, like, is this supplement worth it? Is this something, like, this food something I should be eating? Is this like exercise something that I should be doing? And even like not just which exercise, but how many times a week and for how many minutes and stuff like that. And it's something that I can actually like ask your body, and your body can respond like, this is what's going to be the most optimum for me personally. Cause so
my body, you're saying my body knows, and it's just telling you.
Yeah, like there's so many things, like, people, I feel like we get so caught up in like the trends of things, and people will be like, try the paleo diet. I've been on it for 20 years and I'm perfectly healthy, and then somebody else will try it and they're like, this does not work for me, or like,
I want to do that. I want to do the nutrition thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and especially for something like supplements, because supplements can be so expensive, and you can spend like, I've heard of people saying like, I want to go to a nutritionist or a holistic health practitioner, but then I end up spending like $200 on supplements because they tell me to buy. And so this way I can really like target like you, Lisa, what are the best supplements for you? What are things that you really don't need to be spending money and time on? Or like, what's going to be the most optimum for you as a person that is not going to apply to me? It's not going to apply to the next person, but like you personally.
But the answers are coming from me.
Yeah. And actually it's so interesting.
I was like, Cayla, you didn't tell me that was the case. I was like, that's really talented, but obviously like the answers are coming from me. I was like, we're going to do that one.
I mean, it's so funny to me, like the way that the body, like I can't even explain scientifically, right, how it happens. I just know that it does. And it's like the most interesting thing to me was the first person that ever worked on me, that I like how I found out about this. Her first language was not English. And so she just felt more comfortable, like while she's doing the testing just to herself, she would speak in Spanish, and she would be testing on my body, and my body would be responding yes or no. And I speak about it.
And you wouldn't even know what she's saying.
Like my Spanish is limited to the average Southern Californian, like I'm not fluent at all. I don't speak it. But she would ask a question in Spanish, and my body would still have the ability to respond yes or no. And I'm like, how does that even happen? I don't understand Spanish. How is my body understanding Spanish? But yeah, it's interesting how the yes or no's are like locked in there somehow, and they come out. And I mean, you have to ask the right questions for sure, but it's in there, to be able to ask for it and stuff. So it's really interesting.
No, and I'm just saying, because I know, okay, I said from the beginning of this podcast that more and more people are becoming aware of this stuff, like energies that are stuck in your body. But I think people are just starting to grasp the concept, right? But I'm telling you guys, like, I don't think Cayla recorded them, but I was like, if they did, like, you'd be amazed, like how on point she was able to pick up something, how precise, even down to like even how old I was. I even forgot, or at least I thought I forgot it. Okay, guys, get this. I think my mind forgot it, but my body didn't forget it. That's the big difference, right?
Yeah. And even things that like I've had things that I just thought like, oh yeah, I'm over that. Like, oh, that happened in the past. Like, there was one thing that like was way back from like years ago, and it had something to do with some guy that had broken my heart, and I'm like, and it came up to me, and I'm like, I'm happily married. Like, I couldn't really care less about the guy at the moment. Like, consciously, I feel like I'm fine, but somehow that emotion was trapped in me still. And like, even though my mind had processed it, my body hadn't removed it yet. So it's really interesting how that works, and how we can be consciously, and like our bodies different than that, you know?
Yeah. No kidding. No, it's just making me think like, and it was crazy because I didn't even know that I was going to say that on just a few minutes ago, that our minds, we consciously don't, are like, it's not, we don't even know. But our body knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Cayla, I was like, we're doing more than just the emotional clearing. We're going to go all the way. No, the reason why it interests me too, because I went from marathon training and then into body sculpting. But to be honest, in the last few weeks, I kind of fell off. Right. And there's just so much going on. And then I'm on top of that, I'm watching a dog, and so life is getting in the way. But people, even with dogs and families, they manage to get the workouts in, right? So I'm wondering too, if my body just knows the best exercise for me, because I could run. People would be amazed at how much I could run. I could not run for 2 months, and I'll just run for the first time. I'll run 8 miles, but I'm just saying, like, I'd be interested in finding out why a lot of people, this could be it too, is that why people can start a program and then like maybe halfway through or whatever, they don't, these are things that are really helpful. So,
yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Cause there's so many, like, I don't even understand how it works, but like, there's some people that like certain things that are like healthy are just like not good for them as a person. Like I met somebody and she said that like, yeah, salads, like my body has told me like I can have an occasional salad, but salads are not really healthy for me, and that to me, it explains why some people like they try so hard to lose weight, where like they're doing, okay, I'm cutting out all the fats, I'm cutting out all the sugars, I'm cutting out all the carbs. Like, I don't understand why I'm still not losing weight. Because maybe for their body, maybe they are supposed to be eating more starches and just like less fat or something, like, and so people like, we try to follow the trends or what the health gurus try to say, or we have like 20 people telling us that it works so well for them. And it's like, why isn't it working so well for me? Like, maybe it's just because your body's saying something else. Like your body needs something that you're not aware of yet. So, yeah. So that's why I really feel like it was a total game changer with me, where I wasn't just suggesting things to people like, oh, maybe try this or maybe try this food. It was like, let me actually ask. And that way it takes the pressure off of me, because that way I'm not like responsible for your health. It's just like, well, I'm just telling you what your body says, like.
No, I'm curious to see what my body says.
Yeah. I mean,
well, I've done the emotional clearing, right? But I'm curious to find out the foods, the nutrition, the supplements that would best suit me. Yeah. Because if it's my body telling me, I might as well follow it.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazingly, there are some things that I've wanted to do and my body has said like, nope, that's not actually a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's just whatever your body's telling you.
Oh my gosh. Well, gosh, these sessions, my podcast sessions, just fly by so fast, especially when I truly I've enjoyed every guest that I've had on, and it's been so amazing for me. And then now I have you as family. Even you guys can even see, if you're watching the video, you can see from my facial expressions, like even as Cayla's like saying, "Oh, I could do this, I could do that." I was like, "Okay, we're gonna try it, Cayla." But yeah, Cayla, I know we're coming to the tail end of this podcast. If there's anyone that would like to learn more about any of the things that we touched on today, most especially even emotional clearing, or even just in a general sense, applied kinesiology, what would be the best way? Do you have a website and contact information you want to give everyone?
Yeah, I do. So my website is sozoholistic.com. So it's SOZO holistic, HOLISTIC.com. And you can contact me through the website. You could also send me an email, at cejohnson@sozaholistic.com. It's harder to spell it than when it's in writing, but yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it, because I will always, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'll have it in the description box below. So there'll be a direct link to that. And then of course, if it's on audio podcast, there will also be some links in there as to how to get a hold of you guys. So don't you worry about that. But Cayla, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on 8 Billion. I know for sure we're going to do a follow-up one, because either one, we're going to do one live, like if you're open to it. Or two, we're going to, I'm going to share again, like maybe more in depth about my, the sessions that I did. But it has been an absolute pleasure. I know that you are going to be a new mama in a few weeks. So I'm sending you so much love. And audience, give her some good energy.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. It's always fun. Like, I feel like I could just talk to you all day.
I know. Doesn't it feel like that? I mean, other than the fact that we know it's recorded and people will be watching this, I just feel like, we're just having a conversation, and you've been so sweet. I mean, like,
thank you so much. Cause it means a lot just to have somebody like take an interest in you and in your life. And I appreciate how you do that with everybody on your show, how you like genuinely take an interest in who they are as a person and like what makes them special. So thank you.
I love that. And we never got into Heartwall. Heartwall is very similar though. I just want to say, cause I know that, we've already covered the emotional clearing, but I really wanted just to let all of you guys know the heart wall is one of the biggest things that I wanted to clear in my session with Cayla. And it was just because I knew that I wanted to take this podcast and the vision of the 8 Billion Project to so many different heights. And I knew that I would need the help of others because I might not be consciously aware. And so I make these, I do all, I try and do as much healing and clearing as I can so then I can be the best that I can for the guests, so then I could deliver clear messages. But more so, it's just being able to be compassionate and loving while you're going through the process of, interviewing these guests and sharing their stories. So thank you so much, guys. If you see more love or if I have more glow, it's because of a little bit of this. I mean, not a little bit, but a big part of my heart clearing. So Cayla, I mean, this is amazing. I know that I'm still going to work on a few other things with you, like what's the best way to exercise? Tell me no exercise. Just kidding.
Just let me know.
Anyways, Cayla, thank you so much for being on. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the 8 Billion podcast. I look forward to having you tune into the next episode of the 8 Billion podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If it's moved you in any way, please review and share your thoughts or text me your thoughts at 949-247-2800.